So after I finished my junior high school in China, I went to Singapore to pursue my secondary and tertiary studies. Now, I made a rare choice by taking both Chinese and English literatures. So I had a chance to meet teachers who are educated in both the Eastern and Western cultures, respectively. So as students, I'm not proud of what I'm going to admit now, but as students, our attitudes toward these two courses vary. So one simple standard to judge is by our phone battery levels. So, well, after our Chinese literature classes, we're more likely to be seeking for charging ports all around our school. But after English literature classes, well, we are more willing to lend our chargers to our friends who had just finished their history classes. Okay, so, well, now, the explanation to this anomaly is that our Chinese literature teachers would prefer to rely on textbooks. Well, they would repeat most of the information given to us and add in some extra materials. So, as for our English literature teacher, Miss Tay, well, instead of just telling us what the author means, instead of giving us a fully cooked meal, we have our raw materials. And it is our job to analyze the text. So now, the poem, The Fog. Slowly the fog hunched shouldered with a gray face. Now, the fog could mean that the author, the poet, is going through a very dark and gray period of his life. And you can see that, yes, a blind man hunting the moon. Now the moon would represent something pure, something ideal. Well, that is a common explanation, so it surprises me when one of my classmates pointed out that the fog could actually be a serial rapist. So, well, who only commits his crimes by dawn. Well, you can see from some evidences, hunched-shouldered, well, fingertips touching the way, and, well, searching out through the streets to the fields. And now the moon would obviously represent young and vulnerable ladies. Well, so it looks, I'm shocked when I heard this explanation. Are you allowed to talk like that in class? But what is more shocking is that my English teacher said, and I quote, that this idea was inspirational and insightful. So now, if we look deeper to that explanation, we will see, yes, it has some flaws. But instead of just criticizing the idea, she taught us, what she did was to teach us the correct literature devices for us to search for evidences, for us to prove our points. Now, that is very different from the Chinese literature classes. So she taught us personification, imagery, how to find the atmosphere, the tone, or the mood. Now, it was fun. It felt like fun. So I felt like Sherlock Holmes, searching for evidences and looking through mirages to find the best explanation to the poem. Now, well, I met a brilliant young lady just a few days ago. Well, she shares a huge passion in writing. I mean, she is writing for the Sanlian magazine now, currently. So she shares the same slight disappointment towards Chinese literature education right here in China, or in a very mild manner. So claiming that our literature learning experience is separating the lively literature learning experience into mechanical pieces, which serves only to the purpose of coping exams. Now, there's a lack of discussion about the neutral influence between people and the society, which is a key. So, well, some teachers might have made minor attempts to make their lessons more fun, well, by giving reading tasks to students. That's good, but we still should adopt an entirely different teaching method from the way you teach, let's say, mathematics. So it is a quality of critical analysis instead of the quantity that matters. Well, that being said, I cannot deny that it is the teacher's role to introduce students to all kinds of, well, styles of literature work. Especially in China, we have our, well, ancient poems, the modern poems, the prose, well, play scripts, well, both ancient work and modern work. And, well, the Wenyan Wen is a tough part. Ancient Chinese is a tough part for students to understand. There's a bigger difference between the Wenyan Wen and the Mandarin we use now than what Shakespeare wrote and what we see for now. So, it is hard. It is hard to delete all the dry recitings or fixed interpretations from the textbook we have. But what we could do is to change our teaching method to give a chance for students to form their own original thoughts. Now, we have this poem, Yongliu by He Zhang. It's a very well-known poem. It's about willow trees. So the last two lines, well, I'll try my best to translate it. I do not know who cut out these thin leaves, but the spring wind in February feels just like scissors. So now the spring wind feels like scissors because they are literally cutting out the outline of the leaves. But there could be another explanation, like what we did to the fog. Well, willow trees is a common represent for saying farewell. If you break the willow tree branches, well, it would be what Asian Chinese do when they're saying goodbye to their friends. Because willow tree in Chinese, liu, sounds just like liu, so please stay. Now, this is a whole new perspective. So the spring wind does not only cut out the leaves, it also breaks the branches. So it points out that a lot of people say farewell during spring, well, right after the Chinese New Year. So now it has two meanings instead of one written in the textbook. Well, that is what I expect. So we could teach students to get the correct devices to understand the poem instead of just giving answers. Now, I was being curious of what Chinese students are capable of. I was being invited to join a few reading club events called the Radiation, which is a combination of read plus radiation. So, well, I shared a few poems with the students, and I introduced them to the idea of critical thinking. We only had 2 hours for the entire event, although they are new to this concept. But they did a very good job to get comfortable with it, to form their own ideas, and even defend their own ideas when others disagree. So, about critical thinking, the ability to evaluate, to explain, to analyze, to deduct, and most importantly, to boldly admit your misunderstandings and evolve your own ideas. Well, this is lack in the current teaching methods in China. But students, well, from my experiments, I can see that they could learn this method in a very short time. So, yes, every year after the Gaokao in China, I would search for the 0-mark essays, well, mostly to laugh at. And I would also search for the full-mark essays, also to mock at, because, well, the full-mark essays are what the kind of work you'd expect from the teacher's pets. So they follow every routine. But the 0-mark essays, well, these guys are geniuses. They'll write poems, well, they'll draw paintings on the paper. So it's fun. So I need to look at them to make myself feel better when I look at my own writings. So now, jokes aside, it is the Gaokao essay part is in desperate need for reformation because it gives the situation to students, and it's their freedom to choose to write a narrative essay or an argumentative essay. So they will be in this struggle. Well, should I make the examiners, should I surprise them with fancy vocabularies and extraordinary metaphors, or should I build a strong castle with logical thoughts? Now, well, I suggest that we separate the essay writing into two parts. So part A, we could do our narrations or prosas, well, to evaluate the students' literary writing skills. Well, we'll give them a broad topic, like, what do you feel about seasons? Something like that. And as for part B, we could ask them to form their own ideas and prove them. So we'll task their abilities to raise innovative ideas for an argumentative essay. So in this method, the students will be clearer. And I think that is a minor change we can do to start to introduce the entire idea of critical thinking to Chinese students. Thank you.